Hello, welcome back. Moving on then to the analysis of a top band response and a second band response to the third question, the language question. So again, I'm using the ones that we actually referred to earlier because I want you to be comfortable with this material so you can reference it a lot and understand it, and hopefully, because we've been over it in once already, seeing it this time should be quite familiar to you. So hopefully, if you haven't watched those other videos yet, I definitely recommend you watch those first. So this is the one, the question 3. This is the one where we know we have to infer something, so we have to try and understand something that's in between the lines, etc. We look first at the C, grade 1. So first of all, we understand that what's being put here is quite simple. The range of vocabulary that a person has here is slightly more lacking. It's not even necessarily that what they're picking out is that much worse, or the way they're actually doing, or what they were doing is much more worse as a skill. But what it is, because it's inference, we have to be able to say what's there in front of us in a different way because we're inferring it. So obviously repeating it just word for word is not going to be very useful to us, and we need to make sure that we have quite a wide-ranging vocabulary to be able to do that. So here, for example, Claire is in a situation that is getting worse. She has been working really hard because she had to change sales. I was exhausted. She thinks she'll find some dry clothes and will make her feel better. She only finds wet ones. You can see the language here in that it will just, even when we have the word thinks and feels. So she's working really hard. Obviously that's not necessarily a feeling, but it kind of gives us an idea of what's going on there. She thinks she'll find some dry clothes. Again, it's just a very factual statement. We're not actually taking any heavy inference for it. It tells us very clearly that she goes to look for some clothes. So we're just saying she thinks she'll find some dry clothes. Very clear, but not very perceptive. Let's look at the same thing referenced in the other response then. So we'll start from the start because it actually sets us up better for it. In opening, Francis sets up the tone of one who is besieged, because obviously we can kind of inferring straight away the overall feeling of the piece, and obviously of the writer at the time. And because that's important because it's throughout the experience. So we're saying at the start, this is how she feels. She tells us the first girl being unpleasant, the second one being appalling, showing she feels the situation is deteriorating. So straight away there, the nuance is picked up. Here we've just said it's getting worse, but here we're actually showing that the feeling is deteriorating. So both of them are accurate, but this one allows us to set up more, because deteriorating, it could be getting worse for a lot of reasons, but in the deterioration, it just invites us to look at it bit by bit by bit. I suppose what I'm really saying there is it's a much better choice of word. It's not really going to make it's not really going to make a huge difference in the marks, but I just think this one sets you up to actually explain a lot more. Worse still is that she's unprepared for another blow, highlighting the feeling that she's relentlessly being battered by the sea. Okay, that's how she feels. She doesn't say, "Oh, I'm being battered by the sea," but she tells us that the ship is just getting hit and hit again, and that waves have come over, etc., etc. So we know she's being battered by the sea, and this person's put it in here. Whereas here, we've just put working really hard, which doesn't sum it up in the same way. This sets us up for the idea of her being in contest with the sea, and she begins to consider options, seeking solace in the fact she can do something about her clothes. So now the inference isn't just that she thinks she's going to find some dry clothes, as we have here. Now the inference is that, bearing all we've already said in mind, or we've already analysed about her thoughts and feelings, she needs to change this. And that's really good because I'm explaining a change in thought there, okay? Here I'm just listing the thoughts she actually has, but here I'm actually showing more perception because I'm saying, right, she started off, she feels besieged. This is how she wants to feel a bit better, by doing this. And even if she can't do anything about the weather, the thought of this little bit of control comforts and excites her, so she thinks that she will find some dry clothes and this will make her feel better. Fine, but there's obviously this little bit of control, so obviously the reference is there to this the situation that she's in, comforts her, one thought, and excites her as she heads to her locker with some anticipation, and then I've backed it up. So I've taken the anticipation there to mean comfort and excitement. So you can see the extrapolation and the development of it. So in here she's saying, make her feel better. That's it. So the same point is covered here in just make her feel better. But here we've got it covered with seeking solace, giving her control, giving her comfort, exciting her, and she's headed with some anticipation. And then, we swap it again. So make her feel, but she only finds wet ones. So here again, an opportunity is missed to actually to kind of show how that's come straight back down. And that's interesting because we've got the idea here, we've set ourselves up for the idea that this character is being besieged. So again, we're kind of linking, we're keeping the thread of our paragraph very mixed and very appropriately mixed, should I say. But the revelation is that more and more wet garments, which begins to get the better of her mindset as her heart sank further and further, showing a situation it's taking a toll and how low she feels. Now, if the C grade student was to try and work with this piece here, heart sank further and further, what they would probably do as a natural reaction is not apply the right skill at the right time. And again, the chief examiner commented on this. So what they would have done here is gone into language analysis. The fact that she says sank, and sank is low, and sank goes down, shows that she is in a bad situation. That's not what you're being asked to highlight. You're being asked to show that her thoughts and feelings. So basically, I'm saying I don't need to analyze the language to say that. I can just say situation is taking its toll on her and she feels low. Now the example I just gave, if you remember the examiner's video, that actually would be one of the ones where you kind of would get partial credit, because the second half of that is right. You know, the word low does actually show that her mood is changing or her feeling is changing, which would get you marks. But the whole point about, you know, focusing specifically on that word, etc., isn't necessarily needed. You can just, what you've been asked for is the thoughts and feelings. So paraphrase, rewrite, re-put, retell how the character's feeling, as long as you're supporting it. The reference to the word sank is particularly relevant as she must fear the ship will sink after being battered so heavily. So here I've actually analysed the word sank, but only because I want to highlight it in her. She's using it in her writing because she's saying she fears the ship will sink. And this is a whole entirely new fear. So I'm not analysing the word to actually give you analysis of what the word means. I'm analysing the word to actually reference her thought and feeling on that. And this is much more perceptive because we're kind of looking at on a different level. It's not just what she's directly saying to us, it's what she's used, the terminology she's using to describe a situation is also a reflection of a situation. So that in itself is more perceptive. So yeah, as we go through this, I suppose the only thing that I could add to that, because I don't really need to go through this, or everything I'm going to say that an A grade student does differently to a C grade student is actually linked there. You know, they've got the wider vocabulary to be able to do it. They're going to highlight more things. They're going to look for more nuances, in what's being put across. They're going to explain something in a lot more detail with cross-referencing, and then here we've got the kind of secondary meaning being picked out in this last part that I said. The only other thing that I could say an A grade student would do that a C grade student wouldn't do is picking out the changes. So where there are changes here, this one's picked out, so we're starting off when it's bad, and then here she's got seeking out solace, and then here obviously it's, you know, she's low again, whereas here it's just kind of brushed over. You know, when she mentions the feel better here, that wouldn't really get us huge marks. That will show that we've got a good engagement with the text, but not, you know, a complete engagement with the text, because you know, this was a real point of reprieve for her. That would have made her feel really good. Here we've got a little bit more of that again. And the last part, she shows us how she is in dismay and the way the weather's changed and become more severe. Her hopes really drop as she is worried and let down by the weather. So if you've read the piece, or you remember me going through it in more detail, this piece here, you know, misses out completely on the fact that, you know, things should have been getting better, or she thought things have been getting better, whereas they are picked up on in this one here. We've got the mixed emotions, we've got the bleak the bleak skies, and then she says she saw the blue sky, so she felt a bit better, but then the wind actually became stronger. So the whole piece of writing is being followed in the A grade one. You know, all the kind of twists and turns that the writing takes being followed. The C grade student, what they seem to have done is focused on like bad feelings and then just kind of put in all the bad feelings. So you have to make sure that any kind of changes are picked up on, because that they're there to, the pieces are used with stuff like that inside them, so you can show a change, that you can appreciate the change and pick up on the change. So please bear that in mind.